Welcome everyone to Coaching this Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about how to transform your life. And you might think, well, haven't I been transforming my life all this time? Yes, but now we're going to take it up to the next level. We're going to raise up the temperature, so it might get a little bit hot in here. So hopefully you have the AC on and you're going to be cool, because what we're looking for is to get you into a new place in life with today's episode. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and to share this video and or audio to help build a community of like-minded individuals that want to get to a more positive and stronger state of mind. When we are on that journey to our better self, to a new life, we have to understand something, that journey that we're on is going to be unique to us. Now, how we do it doesn't necessarily matter, but the main thing that we have to pay attention to is that we are doing it. Many people will ignore their journey, will ignore their calling, will ignore the whole entire world and just accept the little pieces that they were given. If I gave you 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and I only gave you 800 pieces, that jigsaw puzzle will never complete. So those 200 pieces are now scattered throughout the world. So we have to go on a journey to find those 200 pieces of the crossword puzzle. Now, you might find it in your hometown. You might find it on a different continent. You might find it in personal development or on this podcast. But understand that you do have to go out and you have to search. Don't be afraid to search. Don't be afraid to fail. We have to get into the mindset that we can transform our life to whatever we want it to be. No matter what someone says, no matter our circumstances, we can change that life. Now, it might take some time and some prep work to get there, but that's what coaching in session is, to lay out the foundation for you to finally start to build your empire, your dream life, whatever you want to call it, up upon that. Because if we don't have a strong foundation, then everything else tumbles and will just fall apart once it gets to a high level. We need to be prepared for that. And the best way we can do it is by doing the groundwork, by doing the personal development work, working on us, figuring out how our brain works, how it was developed, and then using what we have, getting what we need so we can find the place that we want to be. There's so much to mindset. There's so much to transformation. Because there's so much, I know I can't do it by myself. So today I'm bringing on a transformational coach, Makena Sage. And Makena is wise beyond her years. But what she will tell us in today's episode is that you're going to be just fine. Now, you might not know that right now, but with time, we can get you there. With love, nurture, care, we can accomplish so many different things. We have to make ourselves aware of it though. And if we can find that reason through all the chaos in our life, through all the mumbo jumbo that we were given, and we start to make that change, then our life can truly begin to transform. So here is an interview with Makena and myself. Welcome, Makena Sage, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. Thank you, Michael.
So today I have you on as a transformational coach. In your own words, can you please explain what a transformational coach is and how you help the world?
I think a transformational coach is my way of trying to come up with a 2-word answer to a very complex question that I think all coaches are like, how do I sum this up in just a few words? I would say that, if I had to give it maybe a few more words, we specifically really focus on supporting women, but we do have some male clients as well. So I like to say I help women create extraordinary lives. What that means is, I think I could tell a little story of just my life before. Felt like, I went to business school. I was going to go the corporate route. I was on this track and thought this is what you do to be successful, right? And I started making all these decisions from my head rather than from my heart. And there came a point at which I just started to realize, like, this isn't the life that I really want to be living, right? Something's out of alignment here. And I feel like that was my time of living sort of what felt like an ordinary life, trying to fit into the box of like what people say you need to do to be successful, what I thought a great life would be. Fast forward, I ended up starting my own business. I was in online marketing. I was helping coaches and speakers and authors grow their businesses online. making great money at that point and had a lot of flexibility. And I thought maybe that's it. Right. And I started having panic attacks, anxiety, health issues. And there came this point where it was like, my soul was calling me to something more. And now I look back and I call that the call to the extraordinary. And I think, I don't know if everyone has it. I don't want to make generalizations like that, but like the extraordinary doesn't have to mean some over the moon, over the top like life, but it is this like what your soul came here to do, what you feel called to. And so my work is really about helping people discover what that is and then step onto that path.
I think you're right on track. For me, I was having a similar situation. Graduated high school. I got into a great job doing finance, accounting, making great money. But I remember my second year going in, I was just looking at the cement. I was just walking. I just remember seeing it like, whew, whew, whew. It was kind of like my whole life was flashing before my eyes. And I'm only like 19 years old. And I'm like, there has to be more than this. So I started my journey. I started my journey for mindset, being mindful, aware, finding peace, happiness, all of those different things. And it was a transformation for me where I had to get rid of the old person that I built myself up in high school and start over. And that change was a lot of work. I'm not going to say it was easy because you're basically starting over. And if you don't have a guide, it's very difficult because there's a lot of trial and error. And then you don't even know what the outcome is going to be because you're just like in the kitchen putting ingredients together and you hope it tastes good. For me, I was fortunate where as I went on that process of personal development and transformation, I was able to create something good. I think you're spot on with the soul because the soul has to be endowed with some type of belief is doing the right thing. And if you sway from that belief, you will start to see other areas of your life fall apart. So it's kind of like that's that glue there. For many of my clients, I know it takes a trauma or a type of hardship for them to finally say something is wrong, right? And this could be grief. It could be a relationship, career change, whatever it be. That trauma there is basically the jump start to get people to where they want to be.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate that it often happens that way. And there's this great line I heard early on that I say all the time. I don't remember. I think it's, out there commonly used, but they say, first it's a whisper. So we get these whispers that there's something more, right? Like that moment you had walking on the sidewalk, or I remember sitting under the fluorescent lights on this job interview out of college and just being like, is this going to be my life? Right. And so we get these whispers that say there's something more. And if we don't listen, then it turns into a roar, gets louder. And that can be, those health issues or anxiety or those little signs that show up. And if we don't listen some more, then you get hit by the cosmic 2x4. Mm-hmm. And I'd laugh, but it's true. Those are those moments for people where it's like life wakes you up and goes, hold up, there's something else you're meant to be doing here. And we talk about in our work. So I run a business with my mom, actually, who's my mentor. She's been coaching for 36 years. So it's in the family. She developed a method called the aliveness method. And so we work with people around their aliveness. And if you've ever heard the line, the eyes are the window to the soul. Have you heard that sentence before? Yeah. And so we actually use the eyes as a way to see when you light up. You've had those moments, or maybe those people listening have seen someone and they're talking about something and their eyes light up and they actually seem to kind of glow, or they're doing something they really love and there's this glow about them. So that's where we're actually seeing shifts in someone's aliveness. At every moment, your vitality is either increasing or decreasing. And we can measure this, but most people don't know how. And so just about those whispers, I believe, and the aliveness is like the key to discovering what is your soul calling you to do, and then to starting to go on that path. So I love that you went on your own journey with that. It's always so inspiring to hear.
Just to kind of talk about the light up in your face and things like that, I actually had a mentor that kind of pointed that out to me. I think it was in 2017. I think it was when he pointed it out to me, where I started my whole career in accounting finance. Yeah. And I kind of wanted to be a teacher, but teaching didn't necessarily make the money. So I was like, well, let me do this. I'm going to get my accounting degree, my business finance degree, make a bunch of money. And then when I have a good amount of money stored up, then I'm going to be a teacher And if I ever need money, I can do accounting, all that stuff, right? CPA work. Like I said, my second year of doing it, I was just dreading every single day going in. And I was like, this can't be it. So then I started teaching and I was just so much more intrinsically fulfilled. And I was like, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And then, so I was a teacher for, I believe, 6, 7 years at this time. And then I had a trauma in my life where I had a decision where I could keep on teaching or I could spread my wings and do something different. Where I basically decided was I was going to leave teaching and I was going to do something different. And that's a whole story in itself. It could be for a different show. I talk to my audience members all the time about this, so they know. What I learned was it wasn't so much about whether I did accounting or teaching. It was all about me being able to spread my wisdom, spread my knowledge to anyone. I didn't have to be in a school where I was teaching elementary or I was teaching high school or middle school. It didn't have to be that. It could be me and you having a conversation, working with a client, working with a classroom on how to be mindful, etc. And so after I left teaching, I went on that journey again of being mindful, of trying to find myself again to a deeper level though at this time, because I was already probably on my fourth mindset shift just throughout my whole entire life. And then I was like, well, I need money. How do I make money? I know how to make money, accounting, finance. So I went back into it and I didn't hate it. It's just that it wasn't fulfilling to me. And so I would just try to get my mind to think of the positive. And it worked to some degree. I learned so many different things in probably the 6-month stint of me being back into accounting and then finally leaving again was because I had a meeting with a retired GE executive. And this is a big head honcho guy. He's retired. He just turned 62 at the time, and he was getting ready to retire. And so him and I had a lunch meeting and we just talked. We talked, I think, for like almost 3 hours. And when I talked about the difference between what I do for finance and accounting, how I can help him, et cetera, it's a business meeting. Then I talked about what I did in my past education. He was like, this is probably like 75% of the way into the meeting. He goes, I think you should go back to teaching and education. And it was just because he's like, every time you talk about it, you light up. And he saw that in me. And then it got me thinking. I was like, you're right. And then from that point, him and I kept a relationship where he was able to keep me true to who I was supposed to be because he had already mentored many young people. And so he knew how to do it. So having that type of guidance was essential for me to say, hey, you know what you want to do. So why do you keep on switching back and forth? And it wasn't until he made it very clear to me, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And having someone make it clear for you, it's like an eye-opening experience.
I love that story. What a gift that you had that. I mean, so few people do. That's why I'm particularly passionate about this work because, in my experience, I grew up with that understanding of aliveness. And my mom teaches this and she's been, working with people all over the world for decades. But I had gone a very different direction and thought, I don't want to do that due to some challenges in my teens and everything. I just kind of swung the other direction and was like, I don't want to be a coach. I don't want to have anything to do with this, even though I loved it when I was young. And so that was kind of I always say no one escapes their own hero's journey. Like, even though I was raised with these amazing tools, I had to go on my own journey to lose myself and find myself again, so to speak. But so in those years when I was really struggling, I mean, I wasn't struggling in all areas. I had a great life, right? I got out of college. I ended up launching a successful business 6 months later and online marketing, as I mentioned. And I was working with coaches and speakers and authors in their businesses, really helping them grow, making 6 figures, had a lot of flexibility. So a lot of things were working. And so it was even harder actually to admit to myself. Maybe it was similar for you when you were in the, making good money in your career and everything. It was hard to admit to myself that that wasn't it, and I'm on this path and I was stubborn and didn't want to go to my mom to, get coaching or support. So I was like, I'm going to hire, there's other coaches out there. I'm going to hire some coaches. I'm going to get some support, figure out what I want to do. Because I started to have, the anxiety and some of those signs that this wasn't it. And I worked, I invested a lot of money. I went through different programs, did a lot of personal development, which was great. But when it came to really seeing what was next, I couldn't get clarity. And I was just like, I couldn't see what I wanted to do. And what I found was that most coaches would give me a lot of advice, or they would tell me what had worked for them, or they would kind of put ideas on top of, and they meant well, right? But it didn't feel like it was really pulling out of me. And I don't even think I had language for that at the time. I was just like, something isn't quite clicking about these ideas or about, and it just never felt like I had the clarity. And it took, honestly, I have a whole long story around all this, but I finally thought, well, maybe it's coaching. And I decided I was going to try to start a coaching business, and I flopped completely and was super embarrassed. And so went back to my marketing, kind of like you went back to your CPA work, and did that for a while. But it got to a point where I was having literally daily panic attacks, and I was spending a few minutes every day, like thinking I was dying. That's how intense the anxiety was. And I was just like, man, what is going on? Something's got to change. And luckily, in my case, my mom stepped in and she was just like, I can't sit by and watch you try to figure this out on your own anymore. And I had this experience where she led me through a coaching experience that I didn't even know she was coaching me at the time, because every time I would try to figure out what I wanted to do next, she would distract me. We were on a trip in Costa Rica, actually leading an event, and I would be like trying to figure out what I wanted to do next or what my next steps were. And she'd be like, let's go for a walk on the beach. Let's go get a massage. Let's go do this. And I was like, all right, finally, I just kind of relaxed. And when I did that, she started talking to me and asking me questions and just talking. And I didn't even know we were doing anything. But what do you know, over the course of 2 days, my whole life stretched out in front of me. I saw exactly what I wanted to do, because I knew deep down I was just afraid to look or to fail or whatever it was, right? And so having this experience of someone pulling out of me what I truly wanted to do and reflecting back to me where I had that light and aliveness, even though I had grown up with it, it was different to come back to it as an adult. And that's, I think, the power of this tool. I love that you had that experience. It's part of why I'm so passionate about the work I do, whether it's, certifying people in this method or just coaching people directly in our programs, is because most people don't have that. They don't have the synchronicity of meeting someone like that mentors them in that way, or growing up with a parent who can do that for them. And so I'm just like, everyone needs that opportunity to have that reflected back to them, because otherwise they're sitting there in their lives feeling stuck, knowing something's not right, but having no idea what it is they really want to do.
Just hearing you talk about your mother, I can tell, A, she's so wise.
Mm-hmm.
B, she has a high level of emotional intelligence. And C, she's a great mom, because I can see that from my parents, where you might want to do something different and your parents are not over there saying, you can't do this, right? They're not being tyrants. They're allowing me to live life the way we want to live. And I think that's one of the most difficult things that parents have to do for their children, is to let them be. And I think about this story quite often, where there is a mom, she had her son and she was holding his hand, and it was raining outside and there was a huge puddle. And the mom saw the puddle and the kid saw the puddle. Now the kid wants to jump in the puddle. The mom takes the kid away from the puddle so the kid doesn't jump into the puddle. What did that kid miss? That experience of seeing the ripples in the water, of having wet socks, of feeling the water splash up and hit his face, maybe get dirty and muddy. And the mom just saw a headache. I have to deal with this wet boy and he's going to be wet. He can get sick. There's all these different things that they think about. But in reality, when we're born, we're new to the world. We're new to all these different experiences. So when we're going off and we're trying to do something new, if someone stops us or tells us that we can't do something, either we have the choice to believe them or the choice to defy them. Sometimes when we're teens, defying is one of those things that we're good at. So we say, Mom, you're so uncool. Dad, you're so uncool. I don't want to be like you. I respect you, but I want to live my life. And it's because our emotions are so high at that time in our life. And I taught middle school for many years. And you can tell just from those hormone shifts, you can see how emotional they are. And the only way you can get through to them is by understanding where they are and then moving accordingly with that. Because if you try to forcefully take them out of that zone, you're going to meet rebellion and you're going to not be able to interact with that child ever again. Or if not ever again, it's going to take a very long time for them to finally realize, okay, this guy or this person is really having the best intentions for me. And your mom always had the best intentions for you. Just sometimes we don't see that when we're teens, especially our peer acceptance has to be there. So we're looking at our friends, we're trying to fit in, we're trying to be the people that we think we are supposed to be. Society has tricked many people to go down a route that they're not happy with. And they keep going down this route. They find themselves unhappy, but they fake a smile. Then they continue to live their life unhappy. That doesn't have to be your reality. You don't have to be unhappy for your whole entire life. We can always make that change to happiness. It's just that sometimes people are, I think, afraid to get it, or they just don't know how. So just going into that type of thinking, how can we get more people from when they're younger to as they're growing up through their teens? Since you had that experience, I had that experience also. So I kind of know how, but I kind of want to get your perspective on this. Like, if a parent was coming up being mindful and listening to personal development, and they want their kid to be on a level of also having that type of mindset, that type of awareness at some point in their life, is there a way that we can kind of guide them without pushing them as we move them?
Well, first of all, I think you're very wise too. You have a lot of amazing,
Thank you.
amazing insights there that I think are very astute. And one of those I'll just speak to briefly, and then I'll come back around to your question, is that kids either tend to conform or they tend to rebel. So we have a kind of a chart that we show in our work that shows how the basis for the aliveness method, and it's called the curiosity spectrum. What it shows is that we all started out as happy babies. We all start out as happy babies. When we're born, you just had, I think, a child. Yeah. And so, like, unless they're crying or they're upset, their eyes, as they, especially, a couple months in, their eyes are bright, lit up, alive. They smile and laugh. And it's like they're laughing, beaming through their whole being. Yeah. And we're all born that way, unless we have, really challenging family situation or something, and we have early trauma. That's the way we come into the world. And babies know, and young children know exactly what they want. If they want an ice cream cone, what do? They cry until they get the ice cream cone, right? And then they forget about it completely, or until they're distracted. So they know exactly what they want, and they basically ask for it in their own way. And then when they get it, then that's it. Yeah. But as we grow up, what happens is we start to have people tell us we should or shouldn't do certain things. We have teachers tell us, this or that, or we have family members or kids bully us in school. We have these different kinds of experiences, and it starts to put our lights out, basically. And then layers of emotion begin to get stored on top of that original light. And so people begin to question themselves. They begin to think they don't know what they want. And this sort of continues. And if you look in the eyes of high school seniors versus the eyes of a child, it's very different, right? They typically are a little dimmer. They're not as present in their eyes. And so we actually show in our work that there's different ways that you can, because as that happens, we lose a clear perspective of the world. In a sense, it's like we're looking through a distorted lens, and we think we, again, don't know what we want. And we feel like we're in the box and the instructions are written on the outside. And so there is a way to begin to sort of wake back up and get back into alignment with more of your true self. And usually that happens through a few different ways. One is a life-altering event or loss, right? People can have an illness, like you said, or a divorce, or they can lose their job or something like that. And those kinds of things will often wake people up, and they'll go, wait a second, I'm not living the life that I'm meant to be living. Or sometimes I am living an amazing life. I need to be more grateful for what I have. So that's one way people begin to wake up again. The other big way is through education, which is basically what you've done in your life, it sounds like, in terms of mindset and educating yourself and personal development and growth. And there's many paths to that. And that's what we do also in our work around aliveness and coaching and working with people. And so I share all that because often what happens in that journey is, we say, kids either rebel or they conform, right? They either go kind of with the grain or they go against the grain. And we often think like when I get out of school or when I grow up, I'm going to do things differently than my parents, right? And so then we get out into the world, and what happens for many young people, they have to make money, they have to figure things out, or maybe they had to do it even younger, and they begin to lose trust in themselves. And so that's all part of that process of sort of the lights going out, and then we can build them back up again. So back to your question of how can parents sort of support their kids to be interested in personal development, I can only speak really from the receiving end of this because I'm not yet a parent myself. My mom has 5 kids. I would say the biggest thing that she did from a young age, and I know I still went away from that, and that was due to a lot of different sort of outside circumstances and stuff. I don't know if that would have happened if not for certain situations, but from a young age, I was really interested in her work, and I would sit in the seminars with all the adults. I was starting at 7 years old, participating in her month-long trainings with all adults, CEOs and people from all over. And they were like, what is a 7-year-old doing here? Right. So from a young age, I was really fascinated and wanted to be a part of it. But that wasn't true of all the kids. She really looked to see for each of us, like, what were we passionate about, interested in from a young age, and then really fostered that. So I think, you kind of touched on that as well, like understanding where a young person is coming from. I think that's huge, is like getting inside their mind. Every kid is going to be different. My little sister loved baby dolls and like playing with her toys. And so we would have kids camps, there would be the training going on, and then people would bring their kids so all the kids could play together while the parents are in the seminar. So my sister spent her time in the kids camps. Well, what do you know? She grew up to be a parenting coach and, family systems coach. And my other sister loved music, and she's a musician, you see. So really fostering those, like, what your child is passionate about. And I think apart from that is like, depending on the kid and depending on their age, this is true of most people, not just kids. It's like if we try to tell someone they should do something, most people don't want to do it, right? They feel like defensive, or they're like, I don't, they have to kind of come to it themselves. And so I think it's more for a parent about like living what you preach, so to speak, and just sharing what you're learning in an excited way, and like sharing and living it so the kid sees that, and they sort of start to make their own conclusions about like, oh, I see so-and-so's parent over here who's really unhappy. And then I see my parent who's doing all this, and like, they really seem happy, So they start to make these connections. And then I think some will find their own way to that. And even if they don't at first, many will come back around to it in the end.
There's so much to education. There's so much to childhood development, just development of the mind and the brain. And we have to understand that if we want to kind of make the moves for children and adults to get into a state of mind that they're going to be happy with. It's not that we want them to get there. They should want that for themselves. A child is going to primarily learn from their environment and the behaviors around them from the moment they're conceived in the womb all the way until they're about 7. Now, around 7, 8, they start to look at the world now. So year 7, you're seeing your mom. She's taking you to all these seminars of all these adults. You're starting to see the world now. And then you're able to take that, and they're just basically seeds at this point, because you're like, okay, I have this here and I have this here. And you just have all these wonderful seeds that you're getting from all these adults and all these different workshops and seminars that you have been. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to sprout immediately. So you're going to kind of go along. You're going to find friends. You're going to find family. Your brain develops. It looks for peer acceptance. And then it kind of moves in that direction for quite some time because emotions become very high at that point. So our thinking lowers, our emotions go up. So it makes it very difficult for us to make sound decisions. So I don't know if you ever heard of this. Don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry, because you're going to leave with a bunch of junk. So it's the same as with the mind. When we're overly emotional, we might not make the most logical choice. That's just the way the brain works. Can you work on that so you can be super emotional and still make logical choices? Yes, but that is like neuroplasticity at its finest, changing how like basically how your whole brain is wired. So when you get to that point, that's probably years and years of personal development. But for a child, they're going to be looking around them. So we have to be good role models. We have to show them the right way to do things, and also show them that just because this is the right way, it doesn't mean it's the only way. And I think one of it's multiple sayings that I think I wrote a blog on it or did a podcast on it. There's multiple dangerous sayings. Number one, I'm going to give my child a life I never had. That's a dangerous saying. A parent should never say that. The next thing is, it's always been done this way. Those two sayings are very dangerous. Don't say those, because when you do that, the first saying is, I want to give my child a life I never had. Everything that you had up to this point made you who you are. So that means you don't accept who you are. You have to, right? Because I'm sure you might be at a point in your life where you might not be completely satisfied, but you're on that journey to getting there, because the first step to betterment or to happiness is realizing where you are. So you might say, I'm not happy with my circumstances. I want to change. So we make that transformation versus I'm not paying attention to my life. I just kind of go through the week. Monday, I hate Monday. I wait for Friday, TGIF, turn up. Saturday and Sunday, I'm relaxing. Monday again. And I do that for year after year after year until I'm 65, and then I retire. And I was fed a belief that at 65, I should be happy because I get to retire. But happiness is not at a destination. Happiness is going to be within you in that moment. Where do you want happiness to reside? And many people put happiness to be one of those fleeting and distant things. I know for me, when I was in high school, happiness was in the future. It wasn't in high school. Yeah, I mean, I had a good high school life, but I was always thinking, when I graduate, when I get a job, when I get a house, when I have 2 dogs, or all these different things. I wasn't worried about being happy at that moment. I took it for granted. And many people take time for granted until something happens. And you said it, trauma, a loss, a career loss, whatever it be. Trauma is one of the best igniters to change your mindset, to change your way of thinking. And I think it's sad, because why do we have to wait till we're broken to be repaired? Why can't we do maintenance work? Why can't we say, I'm not broken yet, but I want to be better, right? I want to upgrade myself. I want to evolve. Many people wait till it's too late or until they're broken, and then they try to do the repair work. Well, typically when if we look at dentistry, for example, you're not going to wait till you get all these cavities in your mouth and say, I need to start brushing my teeth. No, you're going to brush your teeth 2 minutes in the morning, floss, 2 minutes at night, floss. That is the routine. And then when you go to the dentist, everything looks good. I like that. Versus, so you have a cavity, pain, ouch, this sucks. Life doesn't have to be filled with pain, even though pain can equal failure and failure equals growth. Our minds are sometimes looking at failure as something that is negative, something that is bad. And for me, in order for me to transform my life, I had to have failure. Failure was one of the best lessons for me. And to this day, I seek failure. I could fail massively every single day. It would suck, number one, but I would grow at an immense rate. But sometimes circumstances of how you do things, how you plan, might not lead to that massive failure every single day. And it takes a type of mindset to seek failure like that, because of course you don't want to fail every single day and you have no successes. But if you are on a road and you know it's going to be a tough road, and you understand that eventually something good is going to happen, then we can remain optimistic, hopeful, and then we have that belief. And I talk about this quite often, is that when it comes to belief in transforming our life, we only need one person to believe in us. Now, it could be ourselves, it could be someone else. Now, sometimes we have a difficult time believing in ourselves because our subconscious mind is so powerful. We might have been conditioned in a way of thinking that's not conducive to production. So we need someone to kind of jumpstart us. So that's why having a coach, a mentor is vital for us to get past that way of thinking and then to an elevated way of thinking. Because critical thinking is one of those things that are kind of lost nowadays.
Absolutely. Yeah. So much goodness in what you shared there. But I think the importance of support is the last point you made there. And that's huge. I mean, obviously it was on your journey at different points and hugely on mine when, in my case, my mom came in as my mentor. And I see it all the time. And not just like a mentor or coach. I think that's incredibly powerful, but also community, who you're surrounding yourself with. And if the people in your family or in your friend group or, whatever that is, aren't that, it's not that they're wrong or bad or you need to cut them out of your life. I think that's an outdated way of thinking. I think that it's just a matter of also going out to find people who empower you and maybe only sharing those inner dreams and whispers with the people who do really support and empower, because otherwise people may be well-meaning, but they may talk you out of them, because they have fears or they don't want you to get hurt or, whatever their reasons might be. So really important to go out and see, how can you start to surround yourself with people? And that could be, in our case, we have free groups and then we have coaching programs. So sometimes it's within something like that, or sometimes it's just going out and, you have a passion for whatever, reading, and you get involved in a community of people who are also big into reading and you meet interesting, like-minded people who support you. So whatever path to that, I think that's been one of the biggest things on my journey as well. It sounds like maybe some aspects there for you too.
You surround yourself with people who have a growth mindset, people who see the future as something good and not something as, oh my goodness, like what tomorrow's going to bring, or living in a rat race and stressing every single day. Because life is stressful, but we don't have to be stressed every single day. The brain seeks stress. The brain seeks negativity just automatically. That's just how it was hardwired from, millions of years ago. We can rewire our brain to live in today's society. Today, we have a very plush type of society, right? We can go to the grocery store. We don't have to go hunt for our food. If it's raining and thundering and storming outside, we can stay inside and stay dry. If it's cold, we can come inside, have a fire, we have heat. Vice versa, if it's hot, we have AC. We don't have as many factors to worry about in our days, because if we're hot, we can easily become cold. If we're cold, we can easily become warm. We sometimes forget that, or we don't even have to think about it anymore. But at one point in our time, in our life, or in our generation, we did have to worry about that. So now we're worried about things that are trivial, where it be, oh, how many friends do I have? How many likes on Facebook? Am I wearing the latest clothes? All of these different things that are superficial, and we fill our life with that, and it kind of weighs us down. And sometimes you might have a friend or family member even who weighs you down. They're like an anchor in your life. And you just have to be very clear in where you want to go. And sometimes the people that have been with you all your life might not be there when you reach your goal, but it doesn't mean you hate that person. It doesn't mean that that person can't finally reach your place. It's just that you're going on a different path when they're going a different way. And you can't force people to go on your path or to see the light or the right way. People are going to do what they want. People are going to have their beliefs, and they're going to believe what they want until proven otherwise. When it comes to coaching, it's interesting because as much as I would love, to shake everyone saying you could be successful and you don't have to have these self-doubts and limiting beliefs in your mind, it's almost like you have to coerce them in a certain way. It's almost like a magic. And I mean, I learned this in my education career, thankfully, where you have so many different personalities and how you have to approach them. The words and the terminologies you have to use might be different from person to person. So you do have to identify their energy level, identify their mindset, and then understand where they want to go, and then help guide them there. So I know that's some work that you do as a transformational coach, is helping people get to where they want to be, to transform their life to maybe a better place, a more happy state. There's just so much to mindset and to transformation. And it is going to be up to some interpretation, but the end result should be positive.
And I think everyone is unique. That's part of the foundation of what we do as well, is really understanding that. I think so many people look around and they think they're supposed to be doing what other people are doing, or they think they're supposed to think or operate the way other people do. And if they're not, then there's something wrong with them. And so instead we really go, like, if you think about it, you are 100% unique. There's billions of people on the planet, and there's literally no one exactly like you. And how cool is that, first of all? And secondly, there's a framework that my mom's been using for many years or decades that when we started working together, I was like, we need to turn this into a quiz, because I just thought it'd be cool for people to figure out like what's their kind of makeup. And so we call it the World Changer Quiz, and it's free. I can give the link in a little bit, but the quiz is really to find out, we say, what kind of world changer are you? And I don't mean that like you have to go out and have some huge mission or whatever. Like, people might be listening to this going, well, I'm not a world changer, right? Our belief is that everyone is actually a world changer, that the more you go for what you want in life, the more you get what you want in life, the more people want to give back, and they want to support the people in their life, or they want to make a difference in their community, or at least the people who are drawn to personal development typically have that in them. And so it's really about identifying what we call your talents, your top talents, and then your success motivators. And so most people use it and apply it to either a career or business path, but it can also be applied in other arenas as well. And when I really identified what that was for me, it was like really liberating, because for me, I found out I'm a connector. And my motivator is wealth. Now, most people hear that and they go, oh, well, she's all about the money, right? So there's a lot of stuff around the motivators we have to work out, because one of them is shine, which is like about going for not necessarily fame, but for like influence and making, having influence in a certain arena. And so there's all these kind of stigmas around them we have to work out. But when you can really own like, oh, connector, let's just talk about that one. I used to do a lot of things that were very behind the scenes. In my first business, I was very much behind the scenes working in people's businesses, and I was really unhappy there. And it's not because I wasn't out in the spotlight. It's not that, but there's something that wasn't quite aligning, right? I was burning out. I wasn't fulfilled. And some of that had to do with my aliveness. Some of it had to do with my talent. My talent is connector. And connectors are all about people. We're the people, right? Like I am happiest when I am meeting people, hosting events, going out and talking to people on podcasts, whatever it might be. That's what lights me up the most. And that's where I'm truly in my zone of genius, you see? And so the quiz is just a way for people to see what is your zone of genius. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all these things that we would consider more an arranger, which is one of the other talents, more of an arranger's gifts. And I'm trying to fit myself over here into this box, and it's not really working. So I just wanted to share that as a fun tool for anyone who's listening, who maybe is kind of on that personal development path. You might have taken a million other assessments, but I feel like everyone gives you a little piece, right? I've had people take it and go like, wow, that was really an aha moment. I saw that I'm actually this, and then we talk about if you have people around you and you are doing, let's say, a project together, or, like a business or something, then you want to find people with the other talents to create your sort of winning team. So there's this great synergy and collaboration. Or if you understand what your kids are, what your family members are, then it gives you a different way to relate to people. One of my favorite quotes is, the Einstein quote, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll go its whole life thinking it's stupid. And that's kind of what it's about for me, is like really learning who you are. Who are you really? And what if you own that that's the most brilliant thing about you, and not like, something terrible to be changed. So if you're curious to take that quiz, it's worldchangerquiz.com.
Yes, there's so many types of quizzes, and there's so many tests that you can take to help identify who you are from a statistical standpoint. I know there's a print test that I took. I talked to the owner of the print. His name is Paul, and he wanted me to be a coach for him. We just have a different mission, so it didn't work. Great guy. He wanted me to take the test, and so I took the test, and it's like 98% accurate of your inlaid type of thinking, your motivators. All of that's inlaid. Now, I will say that you can change whatever you want. So if you don't like something, you can change it. It's just that you have to understand, is it in alignment to the soul? Or do you really want to change this? Sometimes people don't want to change it because sometimes it doesn't matter. For example, if you have an ego and you're a businessman, it might not matter to you, especially if you're in like finances and stocks and you just want to sell. It might not matter to you. But for me, my ego wasn't helpful for the type of business that I wanted to do, educational growth. So my ego had to kind of be put away to never really see the light of day, because it doesn't help me at all. Now, if I want to have it, it's just one of those things that I have to battle every single day. And then I just recently took the Clifton test. I had someone want me to take the Clifton test. So I took it, and we just talked about my top 5 different types of assets, or I guess you could say my forward way of thinking, just from having conversation. He could say, yeah, true. And you might get a low score on something, but it doesn't mean that you're not that, right? So understand, you might have an inclination right now of what you want to do in your life. You might not know how to do it. And I think that stops a lot of people. They just don't know how. And sometimes a test, like a quiz, like the one you're talking about, can be that how. It's kind of like, I took this quiz and it's like, yeah, This quiz was that light bulb for me. And then you took the quiz and it kind of woke you up. It kind of said, hey, you're good at this. Do it. Versus, I don't know how to start. And many people get to that point. They don't know how to start. So they don't start. That's one of the greatest sadnesses, I think, is that many people have so much potential, but they just let it dry up and they just, leave it under the table.
Yeah, I think people think, what's so special about me? Like, what do I have to offer? Right. And that's some of the mindset stuff you're talking about. And that's where a quiz or something like that can be great to sort of just point out like some of the things that are gifts about you. And I love that you brought up ego, because I have an interesting belief about the ego. And that is that the ego isn't actually, it can be the thing that makes people boast or makes them, bravado or whatever, but it's actually the part of us that in most cases, it's also the part of us that tries to keep us playing small. The ego is kind of like this part of our mind or our psyche or whatever you want to call it. A lot of people think, well, I don't have ego, right? And they make ego a bad thing. It's not intrinsically a bad thing, right? It can be used in all different ways. But often when they're saying like, yeah, I have all these fears and self-doubts, and that's actually your ego. That's kind of the smaller self talking to you, saying, and a lot of times you see people with the biggest quote unquote egos actually have the most self-doubt, and they're sort of overacting to play out. So I just like to share that because I think people think like, yeah, that's a bad thing, or it's a part of you. And usually the ego is trying to keep you safe. That's the thing. It's trying to keep you safe and what you're comfortable with and your comfort zone, and to recognize that there's maybe a bigger part of you or a deeper part of you that knows exactly who you are and what you want and what you're here to do. And if you can really tap into that part of you, then, and there's so many different paths to that, right? Meditation or personal development or whatever that might be. And if you can step into this, maybe a good kind of final point to make is you can step into a future version of you. Like, one of my favorite things to talk about is the person you're stepping into. And that is that if you have a vision for your life, and maybe you don't have one yet, and that's okay. You can start the little following the breadcrumbs of your curiosity to see where that leads. But if you start to have a vision for your life and you really start to dream and where you want to go next, or at least what that next level is, and you can imagine yourself having that already, right? Making that amount of money, being happy in your career, having that kind of relationship, whatever it is for you. And you can picture yourself as that version of you. And you can begin to go, how would I dress? And how would I act? How would I talk to myself if that were already true? And what kinds of people would I be surrounding myself with? And if you can begin to take steps to act the part of that version of you now, then you will actually accelerate how quickly you get there. And so that's sort of in this vein of just like seeing and believing and not sort of listening to the ego, but really beginning to just assume, well, what if it did happen? And what if, I was there already? How would I act? And so when you be the person who has those things that you want in your life, then automatically you begin to take the actions, and automatically sort of the steps start to follow. So I often have people give them a name, give your person you're stepping into a name. So my current one is Audacious Eve. And Audacious Eve is like, audacious is an energy of just like putting myself out there and being more fearless and going for it, that I really wanted to step into. And I feel that I'm living into her more and more every day. So it just gives you a little like mental reminder of like, oh yeah. And you don't have to share it with anybody else, right? You can keep it to yourself if you want. And you can change it every year or so, whatever fits for you. But it's just kind of a fun exercise around that.
And I love what you said about giving yourself a name. It's like, if you're learning a language, they also recommend to do that. So for me, when I'm doing Spanish, I'm not Michael, I'm Miguel. Mm-hmm. I get into that mindset, and it's so profound, just the way you just do that switch and then you're that different person. For me, the ego is going to be more like an unconscious motivator, where it's just that underlying blanket statement that we give ourselves that keeps us in our comfort zone, that keeps us where we are. And it's essentially an anchor. Sometimes the ego can be good, sometimes it can be bad. Like I said, it does depend on the circumstance of the person, because sometimes a person can keep it and they might not be a very friendly person and they don't really care if they don't have relationships, where you might have someone who really wants to start a family and to be friendly and have a lot of friends. Success is different for everyone. My definition of success might be wildly and drastically different from your definition of success, but it doesn't mean that your definition is incorrect because we all have a different person. And so you're Audacious Eve, and I might be Magnificent Mike. Just because we were different people, it doesn't mean that the person that we're trying to become should be angry at the other person because they're not at the same level or they're not in the same realm as the other person. It goes so deep. When we think about mindset, when we think about growth, when we think about transformation, there's just so many avenues and so many paths that we can go down. And I mean, you and I could probably talk until it's morning tomorrow. But what I want from you is, if you can, please give us any last words, and then please tell people where they can find you.
Last words. I mean, I think listening to this podcast is a great start. Wherever you are on your path, I would just say follow your curiosity. Where is your inspiration and your energy kind of leading you? And those are the little breadcrumbs of your aliveness. We say aliveness is the compass that points the way to your most extraordinary life. So it's like you have this internal guidance system and it always points to your true north. And so just keep following those little clues. And, we never get there, so to speak, but your life will become more and more extraordinary every step of the way. And where you can find me, obviously the quiz is a fun one, worldchangerquiz.com. And if you want to find me, follow me on Instagram. I'm at Makena Sage, Makenasage. I always share that just because if you want to message me, I'm an open book. I'm here for you, and you can read and see some of my content there. We have websites and Facebook groups and all kinds of stuff, but I won't overload your people with those.
No problem. I will overload them anyway in the description box.
Okay.
So it will be in the description box. I'll
give them all to you and you can share them with them. Yeah.
Please. So I do encourage everyone to check you out just from our conversation. I know anyone who reaches out to you is going to be in wonderful hands. You're very caring, you're kind, you're passionate about what you do. And that's exactly what I look for in a coach. And I know it's going to be exactly what anyone who's listening to this episode is going to be looking for. And you have it. So I encourage people to reach out to you. Thank you so much again, Makena, for coming on. Great conversation. And, if you need anything from me in the future, I'm here.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks so much.
I would like to thank my guest again, Makena Sage, for coming on Coaching in Session. She is, again, wise beyond her years, and she is going to be a wonderful coach to have in your corner. And just from hearing how she speaks about her mother, I'm sure if you were even working with her mother, she's going to be an amazing coach also. So get to it. All her links are in the description box below. Of course, if you were looking for mindset work, coachinginsession@gmail.com if you wanted to ask me a general question, or if you wanted to jump straight into one of my membership plans, head over to revenconcepts.com and we can get you the coaching you need. No matter what you choose, whether it be with me or one of the other wonderful coaches I had in Coaching in Session, you're going to be in good hands because you just have to find someone that you resonate with. Now, you might resonate with me. You might resonate with one of the other coaches. It doesn't have to be me. It could be Makena. It could be anyone else, because my goal is you. My goal is for you to get to the best place possible. And also share this episode with someone else so they can also get into that understanding of there is someone that I'm going to find to be compatible with. And then once you find that coach or that mentor or that guide, stay with them for as long as you need to in order to change your mindset, to change your life. And then you're going to start to see that the world that was so dark and so dim begins to light up because you decided to transform your life and evolve into something more. What are you waiting for? My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com. I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.